have come to the end of the course, and today's lecture I am going to give you just a recap of what we have done in this course and a conclusion that will be followed by the bibliography for your use to learn the subject a little more. So, we will start with whatever we have done. We began our lectures with introduction to management. Then we followed that with the approaches to management. We discussed about the strategic architecture of management. Then we moved to the micro and macro level concepts of management. We had the definitions and descriptions of this subject. Then we have discussed in 2 lectures the methodology for management science. We have discussed different methods, how to organize a scientific inquiry and so on, because whenever we are talking about any scientific inquiry, any subject, the scientific inquiry becomes inevitable, and so we have discussed about that. After that, we have discussed 3 lectures which relate to work, worker and working. In these 3 lectures of work, worker and working, we have first discussed the organizations, the nature of organizations, types of organizations and the related issues. In work, worker and working, we have talked about diversity at the place of work. As we have discussed earlier, diversity has become a movement today, and we have started realizing the fact that we have to manage the diverse workforce in diverse situations with diverse perhaps psychological makeup. After this, to elaborate on diversity issue, we have taken the case of women, work and organization. So, the issue of gender, which has become very important in today's context, and the issue of diversity relates to gender issue in a big way. After that, we have discussed the process of recruitment, selection and training in organizations. We had couple of lectures on recruitment, selection and training of employees in organizations, and then we have talked about the issue of work motivation. Work motivation, as we have learned in the subject in our course, that work motivation relates to your desire to work and to give us the best performance. And there are number of theories which have given us the guidelines as to what are the parameters which we have to consider in terms of work motivation. So, while discussing the issue of work motivation, we have also talked about the commitment of employees, one of the very important aspects which has come up in the recent times, and commitment, perhaps if employees are committed, the attrition rate could be arrested to a great extent. So, discussing various motivation theories given by various researchers and professors, we have talked about the work design approach to motivation. in fact related to, very closely related to motivation, is the work design. So, what are the work designs which we have discussed? Then we move on to the leadership theories. Okay, before leadership we have perhaps done communication. Communication in organizations, we know that if we have very good interpersonal communication, very good communication networks, the organization can really work wonderfully well. And so, the communication, in fact, the orders to be given or any other type of communication, we have to keep that in mind, is an important factor of managing the situation. Next, we have taken up the issue of leadership and authority in organizations. We have discussed various theories of leadership and various types of authorities in organizations. In this discussion, we have also discussed the gender differences in the leadership effectiveness. We have also tried to discuss an issue of leadership substitute, if that is possible. In addition to this, all the theories we have discussed, and not all, I will say, many of the theories of leadership we have discussed, and we have tried to look at that theorizing on the situations where these leadership theories perhaps will work the best. Leadership becomes an important aspect of managing, and today we also have the newer types of leadership styles like transformational leadership, empowering leadership. Also, we have talked about the charismatic leadership. After discussing leadership styles and the leadership in organizations, then we have moved on to discuss the industrial relations and conflict management. No industry can really work successfully unless we have very good and very healthy industrial relations, and if there are any conflicts, in fact inevitable conflicts may be the conflicts in organizations. In other words, what I am trying to say is that every organization will have some kind of a conflict or the other, and generally these are related to the industrial relations issues. So, we have discussed these in a couple of lectures, and then we have moved on to the issue of participative management and team working. In the recent years, as we have discussed that in our introduction, that participative management is considered as one of the important types of management styles, and as we are getting more matured industrially and more matured professionally in terms of managing our organizations in our country, participation takes a very important perhaps role. And as we know that team working equally is important, and in many ways team working and participation are also closely related. So, some authors have talked about team management as part of participative management, and earlier we have also discussed about the quality circles in our lectures. So, in these 3 lectures on participative management and team working, we have emphasized on the issue of working together. In a team, if there are 4 members and all members have different expertise, you can see that they have the complementary characteristics, and this team perhaps gives us much better results than just a group where we have not looked at the complementary characteristics. So, in participative management, we have discussed how participative management works in different countries, what are the dynamics related to that, and so on. In our discussion lectures on ethics, values and corporate social responsibilities, we have discussed the individual values, organizational values, the corporate values, mission, the kind of ethics the organization has. So, we have dealt with these aspects in quite a detail, and then we have moved on to the aspect of corporate social responsibilities. So, looking at an organization, that within what happens and then what happens, outside the organization, in the sense that organization's social responsibility, that becomes very important. So, we had 4 sessions on this particular aspect. In the next section, we have dealt with organizational development and HRD. As we have discussed that when organizations grow, when organizations get stabilized, and when they start getting older, the possibility of decay is there. So, unless we have organization development on the continuous basis, we perhaps cannot make the organizations very effective. So, in this discussion, we have tried to talk about the organizational renewal process and organization development in terms of many practices which many organizations are doing, and the HRD, human resource development, which is very closely tied to organization development or OD, and it looks for the change process, changing the minds of people and giving them input about the newer ideas in the years to come. So, HRD becomes an important aspect, and that is related to many of the topics which we have discussed in the earlier part of this course. So, we can say that in most of the topics that we have discussed, HRD possibilities are there, but in addition to that, you have HRD possibilities at different levels, for different levels of employees. For example, for the senior level employees, we have the possibility of giving them training and development on the conceptual level, at the policy making level, and also a little bit at the human relations level. In the middle management, we have the opportunity of little bit of technical skill and more of human relations and the industrial relations skill, because they have to actually manage the affairs of the organization. And at the lowest level, we have largely the technical skill training and development. So, we have discussed this in our lesson on OD and HRD. Then we have moved on to discuss the issue of management of change, and as we have understood that management of change is inevitable, there is nothing that is static. The society moves, organizations change, and people develop. So, we have to see that how this process of change has to be managed, because we can't say that now something new has come up and I will not introduce that, or I will not make that change. So, that is becoming a very challenging issue for managers today. After discussing the management of change, we have had two lectures on management now and beyond. In these two sections, we have discussed that how management needs to change its strategies in terms of a great emphasis on HRD, management of change, quality, productivity, and strategic management issues. Here we have also talked about what is quality and productivity, how strategic management works at the level of mergers and acquisitions on the one hand, and on the human values, ethics, commitment and leadership styles on the other. So, in our discussion on management now and beyond, we have looked at a futuristic perspective, and in this futuristic perspective we have tried to develop our arguments as to how India has to prepare itself for 2020 to really become the world power. So, management becomes an important aspect of in fact whatever we do, and if we have good technology and if we have any other issues which we have to really achieve, we find that technology is one side, okay, or an industry is at one side, and we have certain goals, certain objectives in terms of productivity, in terms of best designs, in terms of greater efficiency, in terms of quality, and overall leading to the competitive advantage. But in this process, the management becomes the real factor in which implementing the any scientific inquiry or running an industry or managing any situation, we have the management principles in between. That is why we have to understand the principles of management and what is new about managing in today's context and what is new about India. In most of the lectures which I had given to you, in all these lectures, you will see that many research studies have been quoted. Most of the research studies which are either there in the literature, so the references are there, and some of the studies which we have conducted here. So, this gives us an idea that the research designs also need to be really very efficient when we are trying to understand certain processes. After discussing this, I would like to draw your attention, before I close, I would like to draw your attention to the issue which we have discussed already, that management is a multivariate concept. We have discussed that. Management is a multidisciplinary concept where you get input, in fact inputs from say on the one hand from mathematics, from computer science, from operations research, from mechanical engineering, from any kind of a production system. From the social system point of view, we get the inputs from psychology, from sociology, from anthropology, and we have also inputs from so many other aspects. Say economics is one of the most important aspect, the commerce is very important aspect, and the marketing management is very important aspect. So, when we are looking at the whole concept of management science, we have to see that we are looking at managing in organizations, and the input comes from very many disciplines. Maybe the list that I have given is not exhaustive. There are many other disciplines which are giving us lot of input, as you have seen in the different lectures. So, we have to understand that the analysis which we have to do for management science has to be systems based, and the systems design has to be used, as we have discussed also earlier in this course. And in this, so it is not only the input and output kind of analysis. We have to understand a systems perspective, and we have to really try to bring out the most effective sort of factors in a particular management process. So, for which we need multivariate analysis research designs also. Yes. In addition to this, the one of the important aspects which I have also emphasized a number of times, that people management has become an extremely important factor in today's context. That means human resource management, people management, and commitment of employees has an immense importance. The reason being that no industry perhaps can do without people, without employees, and unless employees are committed to their work, we can really not get the best results. So, in the strategic human resource management context, these days we are talking about commitment as one of the important issues. In addition to this, we have to look at the management as a very complex discipline. Complex, why I say complex? In fact, it is just a translation of what when I am saying multivariate or multidisciplinary. When I say complex, what I am trying to suggest that we are trying to achieve some goal, and that goal could be achieved only if we have tried to analyze the production process, the work culture, the employees motivation, the financial aspects and so on for manufacturing these things. And for overall managing, then we need marketing management, the financial management and operations management. Perhaps management information system becomes very important in today's context. And when we want to become really successful, we must have a very good management information system practice in our organization. In fact, here I am reminded of one professor who was saying that today we have come to the age where computers and computer revolution is important, and one of the most important revolution which we have entered is the psychological revolution. So, we have to see that management today has so many psychological background and so many principles which we can see to achieve the success of any organization. So, to continue with our point on psychological revolution, we come to our next issue, that is the performance management. And here you can also see one of the figures, the cartoons made by my students discussing the managers discussing the performance management issue. Performance management becomes an extremely important factor in today's organizations, and without which perhaps management will mean not much, because ultimately we have to look at the individual performance, organizational performance, which will lead to productivity and the competitive advantage. That is how this becomes an important factor, and which has great impact from the psychological revolution, how much people are committed, how much they are interested, how much they are motivated, how much they really would like to have reward and punishment in their organization and so on. So, the psychological factors become extremely important in this context. In addition to this, we have to look at the people management as we have discussed earlier, and in people management we are looking at the issue of diversity, issue of gender, issue of various personality traits, and of course, the overall performance motivation. So, from here I move on to talk to you and in fact, give you some ideas about management through the cartoons made by my students. So, here is one, then I move on to the next cartoon. So, we are talking about performance management, and here you can see, as I said, the cartoon made by one of my students. The organization discussing, the members discussing about the issues of performance management. Then the next issue, here you can see that the person has not got to the job and he is just taking rest, and the supervisor is coming and trying to say something, okay. And you can see that what this scenario. So, we are talking about various issues in performance management, perhaps the person not interested, not motivated, and so on. And here we are finding that there is representation from people regarding various issues in the organization. So, the industrial relations issues are shown here, some aspects of that. Then we move on to the next one. Here also you can see the management scenario and how to manage the situation. Here again there is a perception of how the manager comes and gives that the report to the perhaps the board of directors, and trying to talk about the various issues in the organization, and some statements also we have written in that. So, this brings us to yet another scenario on managing people. Then here there is a session going on perhaps the computer based performance of people. Okay. Perhaps a general manager is trying to learn the use of computer here. That is what happened when we were introducing computers in India, say many years ago. At that time there was a great resistance to change on the use of computers, and whether you talk about banks or the railway stations or wherever, there was great resistance, and that is what happens when we are doing management of change, which is one of the important strategies. So, here you can see that scenario. Then we move on to talk to the managerial scene again, how the performance has to be evaluated, and the senior manager is wanting to know that how was the performance last year, the company performance as well as the performance of good employees in their organization. And here again we are looking at perhaps the annual meeting of the company, and people are trying to make sure that the performance of the company must be achieved, and the benchmark whatever they had given earlier, so that must be achieved. So, this one is trying to depict that, and here you find a manager perhaps like he is manager, but sitting in his office and then being busy with himself, not really interacting with their employees, and that is not expected of a manager today. We are looking at participative style of managing, we are looking at the democratic style of managing, and we are looking at perhaps transformational empowering leadership style. But here the situation is slightly different, where the manager is busy in himself. That's, we are not looking at this kind of a situation for performance management. And perhaps here again the same slide we are trying to show, which we have discussed. Okay. So, these are some of the slides which my students have made. So, I thought I will share that with you. And so, finally, what we are trying to understand is that management today is really people oriented, and we are looking at performance management of people in terms of certain benchmarks that we have done, and also the performance management of an organization in terms of whatever standards we have fixed for that in order to achieve the competitive advantage. But finally, what we have to understand that performance is important, and so is the human satisfaction, so is the human quality of life. And so, no performance management can really be complete without looking at some of these factors, and no management today will give us the best results unless it is people oriented, and unless we have really designed it for in such a way that everyone feels involved in that organization, everyone is committed in that organization, and people feel that this is my organization. And can we now create such a work climate? That is one of the major challenges for us today. And with these challenges, we are now moving to the 2020 and perhaps target that we have taken. With this, I complete the course, whatever we have discussed in this course. And finally, I would like to acknowledge all my students, those who have participated, those who have attended my lectures, the coordinator at the IIT Delhi and coordinator at IIT Madras, Professor Anand and Professor Kushal Sen here, and of course, the most important aspect of this whole project has been our support that we received from the AICTE and the MHRD, and we hope that, and in addition to this, of course, everyone else who has supported me, all my students, and all those who are here at the Educational Technology Unit of IIT Delhi, everyone's support, without which the course perhaps could not have been completed. I thank them all for this, and we hope that this course will be of help to the students, those who want to learn about management. So, thank you very much. Okay.